All right. Up next is the ideal rogue. So this is the other dexterity based character. So we've gone over the ideal barbarian, ideal paladin for you two melee combat characters. We've gone over the ranger, and now it's time to do the rogue. So the rogue is pretty much can like in a sense for their abilities they can forego like a strength and constitution because that's not necessarily their primary focus. They're more dex based, so you're going to want to have like a high dexterity. So having like a intelligence and wisdom not so important too, but having decent charisma would also be helpful as well. So like for instance with the abilities, you might want to put like a 10 in strength and constitution, maybe 10 in like intelligence and wisdom as well, average across the board there, but like an 18 dexterity, I mean, and quite possibly maybe a 16 charisma. And now if you wanted to like bump some abilities up, maybe like bump strength down to 8 and maybe intelligence up to 12 or something so they can think on the fly or whatever quicker, maybe like wisdom as well, but primarily you're going to want to focus in on dexterity, and then quite costly charisma as secondary. Reason I say this is with dexterity, they're pretty much sneaking and and kind of deal in the shadows. So you want to be able to have someone who can slink around, and having a high dexterity will let you do that. It will let you sneak around and flank them and have them be able to use their sneak attack to their full advantage. And also, they want to be able to sit there and have like a dexterous fingers and everything. So when they're like picking locks and disarming traps and everything, they have the dexterity and like the manual dexterity on their fingers and stuff to be able to do that and everything. And now the reason why I'm saying going with charisma is that one of the places where they shine, I mean outside of combat with the doing like the flanking and doing the sneak attack, is in encounters in urban areas. Like when you're going to the city, they can sit there and use their charisma to kind of blend in with the populace and maybe haggle with shopkeepers for better prices and be able to connect with like the local thieves guild and be able to kind of maybe get contacts in the underground that could get them more information on upcoming adventures and everything. So this is a way that the rogue having like a higher charisma would be able to shine in non-combat situations. Of course, like your barbarian and paladin tend to shine in combat, whereas the rogue would shine in like the typical dungeon crawl, and not in combat per se, but in, like I said, slinking around in the shadows and being able to disarm any traps that they come across, being able to open unlock chests and stuff, and in stuff like in that regard, and be able to act as like a scout with the ranger. And so like I said, with the ranger, he could tag along in wilderness settings as like a second pair of eyes and ears and everything for the ranger. And then dungeons and stuff, the roles could be reversed. The rogue could pull the ranger alongside and be like, okay, look, I need someone eyes in the back of my head, so I need you to kind of be like a lookout while I disarm the traps, or maybe I set up a trap itself as the thief or the rogue. I'm used to seeing thief because of second edition, but in fifth edition it's the rogue. So this is stuff where in situations where the rogue is like a kind of like ideal, and this is where they shine and everything. So, and again, why I went with charisma as like the secondary high ability is so that way when you get into like urban environments, they start connecting with like the local thieves guilds, and maybe they can quick talk themselves out. You find yourself in a sticky situation with the guard. You can have like the rogue in lieu of having like a bard. He could sit there and quick talk like, oh no, we're like Obi-Wan Kenobi. These aren't the droids you're looking for, type of deal. So that's like the another way that the rogue can shine as well. So and now as you can see with these four characters so far, like with the barbarian, the paladin, the ranger, and the rogue, we've pretty much got combat pretty much figured out, and now we've got like most non magical encounters covered. So in the sense like the barbarian and paladin are great for like the combat, and like the ranger and rogue are good as like backup. The ranger and rogue are great for like scouting in the wilderness and dungeons, and being able to maybe like I said with the rogue being getting into urban environments, quick talking guards, get in contact with like the local thieves guilds, haggling for better prices with merchants, and a ranger would be able to, in a sense, in wilderness, be able to like use his nature abilities and kind of like be able to, in a sense, be leading the group and maybe know local Druid enclaves and other rangers that are working in the area and be able to connect with them in that regard too. So now, like I said, with these four, we have pretty much all like non magical like areas covered. Now, the thing is, if we had just a party of four with these four, we'd be weak in like healing abilities and in arcane spellcasting because we don't have a cleric or druid or a wizard or a sorcerer. And of course, in fifth edition, we also have the warlock as well. So like that's why like I say like a party of six is great. So that way you have even more bases covered compared to just the party of four with that's stereotypically a like fighter, rogue, cleric, and wizard. And of course, like I substituted the barbarian for the fighter because when barbarian's better with like the raw strength, and so by expanding it to four, from four to six, I mean, with the paladin, you now have a good 1-2 punch with melee combat, and now you expand the ranger and rogue, you got the 1-2 punch for your ranged attacks as well. So now you have like a combat covered, you have like the wilderness exploration covered, you have dungeon crawling covered with the rogue with his disarm ability, and he'd be able to with the ranger flip flop the scouting in the wilderness with ranger and dungeon crawling with the rogue. You've got your urban sentence covered with the rogue, like I said, with having higher charisma, being able to like interact with the larger populace and everything, because stereotypically barbarians aren't necessarily like very charismatic and are good with dealing with people. The paladin like would probably be like a good one to be able to talk with like the upper echelons of society, where in urban settings, but whereas the rogue would be able to, in a sense, the lower echelons of society, like I said, with the thieves guild. So you got urban encounters, and like with ranger, you got wilderness encounters, and like and traveling all set. So now our team is starting to get fleshed out and everything. So of course, in this order, we still, like I said, have like a divine spellcast and arcane spellcast in the cover, and so uh, I go with the cleric and the wizard. Now, of course, you can substitute the druid for the cleric and the like the sorcerer or the warlock for the wizard. But like I will get into like the reasons why I went with like the traditional cleric and wizard in the upcoming videos. But like this video is pretty much to talk about the rogue and where he fits in. So now the rogue can also cover like can like maybe like sit back, especially like if you have like them being able to use like bows like the ranger and be able to help cover the cleric and the wizard and as they cast their spells, and kind of like for instance like you have like your two like main melee fighters up front, then you have your other four back here. You can put like the rogue and like the ranger on the outside to basically help cover the cleric and druid from like the monsters or like whoever you're fighting from flanking. So that way like because those two could use finesse type melee weapons like scimitars and daggers and everything if it came to like a melee combat with those two. So those two would be able to be decent backup melee fighters to the paladin and barbarian, but that's not necessarily where they shine. Where they shine is in like their dexterity based combat, like using bows, like the ranger, and like the rogue being able to, in a sense, flank himself around the monsters and using his sneak attack. And they also, as like I said, they can cover the cleric and the wizard on the sides from getting flanked themselves and everything. So this is like now we can see that the party is starting to come together. So like I said, we've got pretty much all non-magical encounters, non-magical situations covered with the barbarian, the paladin, the ranger, and now the rogue. And so now going forward, we'll start covering the bases with divine spellcasting with the cleric and the arcane spellcasting with the wizard. And so like once I cover those as well, I'll get into details on why I went with the cleric and the wizard over the versus the druid or the warlock and the sorcerer as well.